Hi, for today's iOS tutorial, I'm going to be going over web services. Now, this is from Wikipedia. A web service is a method of communication between two electronic devices over a network. It is a software function provided at a network address over the web with a service always on as in concept of utility computing. The W3C defines a web service generally as a software system designed to support interoperable machine-to-machine interaction over a network. Essentially, how I think of a web service is in the same way where you send in a URL and maybe a web page displays a page. A web service works is your program sends a request and that web service does some back-end computing and sends you something back. And the advantage of this is you don't have to have all the computing resources on your app. You can distribute them to the server, and the server can do the work for you, and it can maintain databases for you, etc. So, for this, I'm going to use some code I've written before. This is for a web service that I had to use for one of my projects. And it's basically a class, and when this class is called, the web service executes and it returns the values that the web service sends back in a easily accessible form. So, first I want to focus on up here. You see this result? This is going to be where the end result of the web service goes. And here we have the main function. I called it do web service. So it takes the name of the web service, the elements, and the values. So the elements, basically, these are the input values to the web service. Sometimes you'll, like a function, it's like a function on the web, and it'll take arguments, sort of. It's similar. So here, the general way this works is there's going to be an NSURL request, I think, right here. And we're going to need to make this request formatted properly, and then we're going to use this NSURL connection to send the request. In this case, I'm sending a synchronous request, which means it blocks until the request completes, and that is going to go into this response data, and then we can parse this response data to get the result back. Now, so to start out with, we have to format this envelope, and you can find a lot of this here. This is the actual website for the web service. If you type in the website, usually in the browser something will come up, and it'll give you, in this case, this here. And this kind of tells you the format of how we need to format our envelope. So if you look here, it takes a user ID. There's the only parameter, so it's user ID is the element. I think string is the value. The thing in between those two is the value. So it's going to take a user ID, and it's going to spit back whether the forgot password value, which may be, okay, it'll send an email or something. But it'll send back probably a 1 or a 0, I would guess. Let's see what happens if I type in. So yeah, it gave us back a temp password. So that's how that works. And so if we look here, what I did was the elements are like the names of the arguments. That would be like the ID, user ID, and the value would be the actual user ID, like the name. So element would be literally user ID, value would be like the username. And here, this for loop basically constructs this envelope such that all the elements are in there and all the values are in the envelope. We add some of this other stuff. I think, here, we set the HTTP method, we set the body, we set value for HTTP field, and this is all stuff from this up here. And then once we have that request formatted, what we do is we again send synchronous request. And what this will do is it will activate the XML parser delegate. When these requests is sent back, it'll be in an XML format. So we have to parse the XML in order to get the data back in a way that we can use it in our program. So there's 3 key protocols: did start element, found characters, and did end element. And I think every time we start the element, we clear the total element value. When we find the characters, we append it to the value, and then when we end the element, what we do is we add it to this results dictionary, basically. And this dictionary will then be sent back. We can parse it. We got our data. So it's a powerful thing. I wanted to. There's a lot going on here, but I just wanted to kind of give you an overview of how it might work in practice. So this has been iOS tutorial.